Recording is live. Again.
Again, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. The viewers that are listening in, don't worry about it. Hi, I'm Ike. I guess I'm technically the DM for all this because I guess I have some of the world building. Hi. Yeah, I get to play as Ollie. He's a little mute explorer old man. And welcome to the FPS. And this FPS is called the Museum of Nautical History. And with me is...
Hi, I'm Authorticity. I will be playing Coriolis, who is a new character who will introduce themselves, but their name was already dropped before recording, so that's fine.
Good, don't worry about it. I'm JayJay and I'll be playing Drew because he's one of like a whole 3 characters that I have.
And we love them.
They are Frenchy.
I know I said that before, but I'm saying it again because it's true.
Gosh.
But as said, this FPS, it begins out with a lot of stuff for Ollie. So for some context on Ollie, Ollie's been working on a little project, and he's been getting some help with some friends and some people that he's gotten to know over time. And he's at this point where it's almost ready to finally have its debut. And well, he's never done this before. He's just a little old man. He's never done this sort of big thing. So he reached out to a museum, which, believe it or not, has the same title as the FPS. That is somewhere likely in Toontown. That's probably not the longest drive for him to do. And they gave him permission to set up some posters, get some advertisement, and even get a free visit to the museum. So, with that being said, he drove himself over, and now he is here. He gets out of his car, he takes a look at the building, gives a little huff, and picks up one of the boxes from the back of the truck or the car and begins walking up these stairs. Meanwhile, where are the other 2 right now?
Coriolis is... I like to think that inside the museum there's... You know how there's always a big skeleton in the atrium? There's one of those,
Yeah.
but it's for, like... It's like a deep-sea leviathan. Like, it's a shark skeleton, but it's absolutely enormous.
Good.
And one of those is hanging from the ceiling, and I think they're walking, and they bonk their noggin on it, and they,
Oh no!
because they are 11 and a half feet tall, and they, just sort of regard it, and walk around it, and keep going to, maybe a display of maps.
How about Drew? Where's Drew?
Drew's probably already inside as well. And I'll go on a limb and say that Drew got in here before Coriolis, or at the very least, did not, for sure, did not bonk their head on the giant skeleton that makes up the centerpiece of the lobby and is already looking at the map. Because unlike Coriolis, Drew is only 4 foot tall, so...
The exact opposite.
Yeah, they give you sort of a polite, sort of like strangers looking at the same thing nod. They don't crowd you.
Yeah.
They know they're big and there's half their skulls exposed. They're aware that they're a little bit scary.
Drew's probably going to look and gently tip their hat in like the sort of, yes, strangers looking at the same thing, but they're more preoccupied with the map and probably with how big it is. Probably a big museum considering it has both space and sea life stuff on it.
I know that we want to get Ollie in here, but could Coriolis roll an insight on this little robot dude?
Yeah, sure.
Insight is...
Oh,
What
that's fine. Don't worry.
exact-
Ollie's just an old man. He's taking a while to get up these stairs.
He's doing his best, and we love him very much. What is this insight for exactly?
With a 14, they'd like to know if he seems to be having any trouble seeing the top of the map being 4 feet tall. And I perhaps a 14 isn't good enough, but if they would be averse, let's say, to them offering to pick them up.
So with a 14, you aren't certain if Drew thinks they are too small to see the top of the map. They are more concerned with how big in general the museum is, rather than trying to like take in the whole map at once. As for being picked up to see the entire map, you don't think they would be offended by it or offended by you asking, but again, they seem more preoccupied with just, whoa, this map is huge as compared to I can't see the top of it.
Ah. Yeah, in that case, they'll just leave this robot to his robot business. They'll make sure they're not blocking like any edges.
I think, I want to roll insight on Coriolis to see if maybe are they having trouble finding what they're looking for on the map, maybe?
You can go ahead and roll an insight.
That is very loud. We'll say that's the best Drew's ever rolled on insight in the history of ever.
Okay, with a 26. I mean, they don't seem to be looking for something on the map as much as they are sort of like appreciating like the quality of the map, like you kind of get the feeling that whoever this person is, they're used to understanding this sort of diagram. With a 26, like you can actually see that there's like they're genuinely like this is a good map. This is some craftsmanship, and like their eyes flicker over certain passages of water that seems to be familiar to them. Seems to make their eyes crinkle just a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're just vibing. They like this map.
This is the part where Drew goes into awkward silence because they do not know this person. They are much better at reading the stars than they are at reading this map, but they don't know where to even start because this is the first museum I think that they've ever been in. So they just don't know where to even start. And they are worried that they have now lingered too long beside this person that they don't know at all. So it's one of those awkward silences that they don't know what to do with.
I think to break up with the awkward silence, Ollie finally makes his way inside.
Thank you, Ollie.
And he brings the box over to what looks like the help desk at the very front of this little lobby. And the lady just kind of tells him, okay, you can just put it over there. You can take a look around for now before you get started with your job. And he just gets a little nod, like, yeah, okay. And he huffs down the box beside the desk, and then he begins to wander over to the map. But he's happy. He has got his eyes closed. You might want to do a dexterity saving throw on disadvantage since you two seem to be occupied with the map.
Are we both rolling this?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, dexterity saving throw.
Okay.
On
I'm
so whichever roll is the lower number.
well. I'm
That
going
was
to
two-
tell you right now
That was two
that
nat
I just rolled a
20s.
nat 1, so I don't think it can get worse than that.
I just rolled 2 nat 20s though.
So I'm not like I can't roll worse than a 1. I'm not gonna.
My goodness, wait. So, which roll do I? I'm a
I
little
mean-
lost, author. Which one am I supposed to grab here?
If you don't want Ollie to crash and burn.
Author, I'm a little lost here.
Well, maybe Ollie trips over Drew and then Coriolis catches him. Maybe that's how this goes.
Because it seems like it looks like Coriolis seems to have very good rolls any which way.
I guess. I mean, they're a dexterous son of a bitch, but
Ollie is walking and walking and walking. He is not noticing where he is going and fumbles right into Drew.
mm,
And Drew has been just standing there not even paying attention.
Yep.
Luckily, at least one person has noticed and has reached the arm out and manages to catch them both from falling over.
yeah, it's actually probably a little bit upsetting the fact that this person who is this big can move that quick, but like they they basically like catch Ollie by the collar and then also put out an arm like in case Drew is going helter skelter, and they just go, "Whoa, excuse me, sir. You all right?"
Ollie does the comedic blink a couple of times before standing it back up straight and just gives a little sheepish wave and a smile because he can't talk.
Mm. Oh, I think they blink and then they repeat it in Toon sign and then also a kind of real kind sign. They sign twice in two different versions of sign if he's okay.
I think Ollie, he looks really confused.
Coriolis also looks confused. They just did in 3 languages. I guess they could. Should they roll out Giantish? They also know Giantish.
Ollie is going to try pulling something out from his pocket. Oh, thank goodness. Yeah, he pulls out his notebook and he begins to write on it. And he goes, "Hi, sorry, I don't know, Toon sign language, unfortunately."
Oh well, that's perfectly okay. Can you hear all right? I should have paper somewhere. And they sort of like they dig through their pockets.
Really just says yes.
Mm. This is, by the way, a real kind undead half giant. Make of that what Ollie will, I guess.
Oh my gosh. I never thought about that.
Big and friend shaped.
Yeah, they've knelt down on one knee to talk to Ollie, because otherwise they'd only be able to see the top of his head and like his little hat.
Oh, sorry about that.
They wave it off, and they also look at Drew like, "Are you be okay?"
I think when it initially happened, Drew's eyes sort of did that thing, like how when the eyes go all swirly, it was like that. But now that it's been a minute, they readjust their hat and they They'll look up at Coriolis because Coriolis is still much taller than Drew, despite kneeling. And yeah, I'm okay. They'll turn and look at Ollie like, "Are you sure you're all right? I'm sorry about that."
Ollie nodded. Like, yeah, of course, I'm fine.
Did the box he was carrying go skidding off somewhere?
He did put it beside the desk as he was told. He was told that he's able to look around before he actually starts putting stuff up.
Ah, yes, and then immediately closed his eyes.
Look, he's just really happy. You know, the 2D happy where you don't watch where you're going.
Of course.
He begins looking at the map as well, and he begins kind of like tilting his head as he looks at it for a moment.
It's a very big museum.
And he nods to that.
I'm not even sure where to start.
Ollie kind of like he taps his pen against his little notebook for a bit, or his pencil, sorry. And he begins to write in reply, and he hands over the writing to you when it's done, of course. It says, well, what sort of subjects do you like?
I'm more inclined to the space theme of the museum rather than the nautical side.
He writes down again. Astronomy.
Yes.
Very nice.
And well, I'm a sailor by trade, so I am more familiar with the nautical side. I'd be Coriolis, by the way. Pleased to meet you.
He kind of just gives a little sheepish smile, and he holds a hand out for a handshake.
They extremely carefully shake his hand.
I think what happens is you go to gently like take hold to shake a hand, but the minute that you actually grip on, his handshake is actually pretty firm. He's going like just pretty normal. I'm like, okay.
It's
I'm
less
rubbery,
that and
like
more the fact that they can only fit like maybe a couple fingers on his hand.
His hands is probably huge, ain't it?
They're just do not break the grandpa. They cannot break the grandpa. He's very kind.
He goes to write into his book again, and he stops for a second. Then he scratches that out. Then he goes flipping back a couple of pages, and he remembers. Oh, okay, yeah. And he shows a page that just gives a really rough introduction, which says, "Hello, I am Ollie, Oliver D. Thomas, but you can just call me Ollie. I'm a bit of an explorer."
An explorer. Not something you hear every day.
He gets a little shrug, like, oh, you know.
Where have you been?
He flips back to like his current page, and he begins writing out again. Well, I have been working on a little project, and I was invited to advertise it here. I got some time to look around, though.
Project?
And he continues writing as it goes. I don't want to say writing every time, but you know, he's mute. It's gonna be.
We get it. We got you.
Yeah.
He goes, well, yeah. It's been a bit of a crazy one at that. I know that I like to do adventures and all, but I've been also wanting to share them with others. So, putting in a bit of my own interest in, I am planning to start up a bit of a club, if you will.
A club of adventurers.
Just a club for adventurers.
I think that Coriolis, like, starts to say something and then shuts their mouth like, Like, maybe it's just better to listen for now. But they actually turn to Drew, because I don't remember if Drew introduced themselves or not.
No, they haven't.
Yeah, they go, excuse us. Would you be?
My name is Drew.
Good to meet you, Drew.
And they'll tip their head again, like, you as well. You can roll insight on Drew if you want.
Absolutely, I'll roll insight on Drew.
I won't, because Ollie is just here having a good time. He doesn't have anything to see.
He's valid.
So,
I'm feeling pretty good.
So the DC wasn't very high, so Ollie could probably pick up on this too. When Ollie mentions that he wants to start like a club of adventures, Drew's very interested in that. They like, for lack of a better term, they like fucking around and finding out. So they're very interested.
Ollie kind of like, he looks back at the map for a moment, and he writes down, well, there's a few artifacts I did end up donating here, I think, before. It's been a while, though.
You must have
You
been...
donated some? Go ahead.
Oh. they start to speak at the same time, and they look at each other like, oh, okay. But if Drew will let them speak, Coriolis will ask, you must have been quite renowned at your trade then.
He writes down, yeah.
They look at Drew.
I never intended to do a lot of it, but you kind of learn to get into the swing of it, and it's not just any artifact that I like looking for. Some are enchanted, or in this case, cursed artifacts. Those I tend to keep at home.
Drew's interest is immediately piqued again, like, you know stuff about curses?
You have cursed artifacts in your house? Yeah. Coriolis looks a little concerned.
Actually, I like to collect them. They always have really interesting stories, and, well, believe it or not, I have caught a couple myself. It's all fine, though.
Coriolis does not know this person, and they do not feel comfortable just being like, blink twice if you need help yet. Like, if you say you're okay, who are they to wonder?
Drew's concerned, but on the other hand, what little experience they have with curses are bad. So the fact that Ollie is just okay with being cursed repeatedly is kind of wild to them.
And yet he is still here standing in front of you. This little old man.
They go, well, I will say that on the ocean we're generally told that if something's cursed, you should not touch it. But, perhaps things are different on land. I don't know. I haven't been far enough inland to know. So, I'd be very interested to hear what you donated, though.
He gives like a really, like, it's like he's trying to laugh or chuckle, but nothing is coming out, so all you see is his little shoulders are kind of wiggling. And he has this very nice, happy expression.
Aww.
And he does like a little wave, like, okay, follow me.
I love this grandpa so much.
Yeah.
I said I love this grandpa so much.
Gosh.
He wanders on and he's writing as he's walking. He's not even paying attention to what's in front of him. But he's doing fine. He's just writing down what he's about to say. Just so then it's not as lengthy of having to wait for someone to write their responses.
Can Coriolis just prepare an action that the when it next looks like he's going to run smack into something or someone, they can just sort of just subtly prevent that from killing him?
Yeah. Yeah, you can.
Maybe he brushes up against a pedestal and a vase is about to fall on him, and they just sort of catch the vase.
Exactly that, yes. We can definitely say that's what happens as he's walking and writing down this hallway. There's vase that is just being that close to smacking him on the head, but luckily doesn't.
Yeah, Coriolis will shoot Drew a look like, is this normal?
I'm glad that at least one of them has the brain cells to stop Ollie from running into stuff, cause Drew is a klutz, and they would just not be able to stop him. However, Drew shrugs at Coriolis I don't know. They are concerned that Coriolis is going to hit their head on something, though, because although they did not see Coriolis hit their head on the giant skeleton, they are worried because Coriolis is 11.5 feet tall. So,
a very, very tall person at that.
Actually, can I just ask about the clearance in here?
Oh, what's in the area, kinda?
Well, no, actually, how tall is the ceiling?
I'd say it's pretty tall. You can easily walk through without having to worry too much. Going through doorways, though, you might have to duck down just a little bit just to get through.
Yeah, they're used to it. Keeps them humble.
So it's definitely a little bit taller, so.
Mm. Okay, then they know, they've been this height for a while at this point. I think they're just going to sort of focus on
making sure Ollie doesn't wipe out.
basically. They've only had this grandpa for maybe 5 minutes, and already they would preferably hope he doesn't kill himself in this building.
But no, he's fine. He eventually makes it up to a certain point, and there is this a very simple statue, and it looks like a different bird of sorts, like a tropical kind of bird. Very stylized though. And he finishes writing, and he says, yes, so this one I found before. There was a couple other statues. I kept one of them at home. There's a few things that I donated here. They don't really have anything special about them, but I figure, well, why would someone want a cursed artifact inside of a museum? When I can just keep it away from others, and it's usually fine. But yes, I like collecting cursed artifacts, mainly because, well, they are interesting. Each one has its own story, its own reasons, and some of them are kind of fun.
Fun?
He goes back to that page that says yes.
Okay, fun how?
He taps his chin with his pencil for a moment, and you see him quickly writing up as he continues on. Some are fun because you don't really know what to expect. They are not necessarily bad curses. They're not necessarily life-threatening. Some can be, but most of the time they are okay. I think it's because I have picked up so many over the years. Some cancel each other out.
The curse
just gonna blink,
yeah.
How many curses do you have exactly?
He shrugs and he writes again. Honestly, I began to stop counting after about 15.
not to be indiscreet, but could I ask how many years ago you stopped counting?
He thinks for a minute. You see him trying to figure this out. He's squinting into like the space in front of you guys. And
Oh my god.
I think the longer this silence goes on, like the more not necessarily defeated or alarmed Coriolis looks, but just like, okay, this is what we're doing now. Okay, I'm clocking in on this.
he's still an old man. He counts a bit, like even on his fingers. He's trying to figure it out, and he writes down, "Well, time is a little complicated, but I presume about a couple years ago at least."
You know what? That's very fair. I was a little bit afraid you would say before my lifetime. So, I suppose everyone needs a hobby.
He chuckles as well. You see him chuckling again, and he writes down, "I can read and write, of course. It's fun. I know how to count my numbers."
Is silently, ever so slightly concerned that it was more than a couple years ago, just because it appears to them like Ollie has so many, and he stopped counting at 15. So they are concerned, but they're not going to say anything.
Yeah, in
Fine.
the mind of Coriolis, they're just like, okay, so if he has 15 curses and he's averaging more than 12 a year, so at that rate, they're going on so many expeditions, so oh boy, I actually don't know how this person's alive.
He chuckles again, and then he continues writing about the statue in front of you guys. This one, I believe I got it from Teehee's Outlook. It's this little area, not too far from my home, actually. There was some curiosity that I took interest in with that sort of area, and I've yet to go back again. There is definitely something curious about it. I just haven't really figured it out yet.
Do you
Very lovely
usually
stuff.
go on expeditions alone?
He shrugs. He writes down, "Well, yes and no. Sometimes, most of the time, it's on my own, though a good chunk of adventures I've been doing it with a good friend of mine, Thad."
Well, it's
Once
good
in
that
a
you have
while
a
with my
friend.
wife as well, but she's not around.
Can
Can
we
I
roll
roll
insight
insight on that last sentence?
Hey, Jinx, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
11.
My
It's above 10.
god.
You hear the last part. At first you seem a little concerned, but at the same time, going through your head, it's kind of hard to tell what he means by that. It's just like he just seems pleasant, content at the moment. He doesn't have anything to really hide by the looks of it, but yeah.
I think what Coriolis at least was looking at was like, not necessarily if he was hiding anything, or more like, is he sad when he talks about this?
Like, about that last bit, or?
Yeah, like, is he lonely now that his friend is not going on expeditions with him?
When he talks about like that and all that, you can tell he is visibly really happy. But when he reaches that last bit, you can tell that like the expression on his face softens a bit. But he still seems mostly content, more or less.
Coriolis will go, well, I don't know if I mentioned, but I will say that I'm the captain of a fairly small merchant vessel. I don't know if you would ever be interested in our services in terms of transportation and perhaps accompaniment on a couple of your journeys. I will say that we have a couple little ones on board that I'm sure would be more than willing to learn from an old pro at adventuring.
He kind of gives like a very happy smile. He loves this, but he also writes down, "That would be very lovely. Although I might need to take some precautions. I don't exactly do the greatest on boats or anything like that out at sea. Although I do have a couple friends that also go on sea adventures quite a lot, though. So if my wellness isn't quite up to snuff, perhaps I could reach out to them and see if they would like to go with you as well."
Yes, I will also mention we have a healer. If you don't mind, a very distinctive bedside manner. She is one of the best.
He gives like a knowing nod, like, okay, yeah. I'll have to think about it, but yeah, that would be quite lovely.
I think there's a flash over to the ship's like medical nook, like the sick bay, and like we just see one of the wooden panels on the side of the ship, and like out of nowhere a butcher's knife like embeds itself in the wall, and then we flash back to the museum.
Oh my god. I'm just...
So you say flashback, and I'm thinking there is a bit from Phineas and Ferb with
Yes.
parents trying to give them a flashback moment, but the problem is they can't see the flashback, but he can, and us viewers technically can. So all they see is him wobbling back and forth. The effects to go to the flashback, but nothing is happening, and they're like, "Should we give him a moment? Because like he's just standing there."
I don't know the protocol for flashbacks.
I mean, Coriolis is not attuned. They like, should they? Is this a seizure?
Ollie's just kind of standing there like, "Oh, okay."
I think Drew and Ollie give each other a look like, what's happening?
Exactly. They look at each other. Okay.
Wait, hang on. Who's having the flashback? I thought it was Ollie.
No, I thought it was
Coriolis is real kind, dude. They like.
We're all just Spider-Man memeing, pointing at each other. Whose flashback is this?
Any which way. Ollie is still like, he's really happy about this idea. He likes the idea of other adventurers joining him and adding him to their adventures and everything. He loves that.
Yeah,
I don't normally go on boats for very long, but that would be very nice.
Yeah, Coriolis, I don't like if they go down a tangent talking about their crew / family, they will be here like until the cows come home. But they sort of just nod and regard the bird statue like sort of contemplatively, like yeah.
I will say though, I have been on we'll say 2 cross-country adventures. I've never seen anything like this before.
Ollie writes down, well, it's not very common you see like really old statues like that. It's probably why I actually kept one of them for myself. It's been around for so long, and nobody knows who made them or if anybody still is there. I took a look around. I don't remember seeing anyone. So I held on to it for now, just so I can do some research and more or less decorate my home a little bit. It's very nice to look at every now and again.
You must have quite the collection.
He's excitedly nodding, like, yep.
Mm. But Coriolis would
Absolutely,
love.
of course I do.
Coriolis would love to ask, "Are you sure it's not? Are you sure it's not? Like cursed?" But also, they're trying to be polite.
I think he's just like, he nods, like, yes, I am sure. He writes down, I can guarantee any artifacts I end up giving out to anyone. Usually, if they do have a curse, I would know about it beforehand, and I would definitely write about it so the person taking it in is aware. I did have a pin that I gave to somebody else once. It was more sort of a funny gimmick in a way than it was much of a bad curse, but I remember getting it first thing, and I turned into a dog at one point. I'm kind of glad I gave it away.
Okay.
Out of character, I think I know what item this is.
God. One sec.
Oh, rip. I think Drew is extremely curious as to, like, this is the most they've learned of curses outside of the meta's narrative. So they're like, wow, I didn't know curses could come in like so many different types.
Yeah, and Coriolis is like, this is a very different take on curses than they're used to. Not necessarily a wrong one. They're just like, okay, I guess we're just accepting this.
Oh yeah, because it's like, you can imagine different places in Einquell. People are going to handle curses differently.
Mm.
Needless to say, Ollie is more than open to a good chunk of them. The fact that he's able to stand with all limbs intact is still a major question.
Yeah, honestly, like, it's... At this point, Coriolis is just like, okay, so this person is secretly a badass. Despite the many vases that I had to, like, keep from falling and cracking his noggin open. It's like, you don't get that old on the ocean unless you're good at what you do.
He chuckles and nods. He writes that is very true.
What else have you donated to this museum?
He taps at his notebook again. Oh, and he begins writing again, and goes, I guess there was a couple other things that I have donated. They weren't really much per se, but they did say they were great for teaching different stuff about Einquell, and even some of the stuff on their astronomy a little bit.
This has immediately piqued Drew's interest automatically by default.
Yeah, Coriolis is very new to Einquell. They are their eyes.
So I think he's been taking guys like out of that little area. I think that area was mostly just like more focusing on like the tropics and some of the early art history towards Einquell, most likely.
Yeah.
Because it has all different times, different places, you name it. And we go into this hallway that has all different kind of artifacts lined up on each side, and it talks more about like the history of how toons are and how toons are able to go about their day and what sort of things they've created over the years and what sort of gags and gimmicks that they have made. Stuff that cartoons normally have, just in a much more historical fashion.
Yeah, Coriolis
And
definitely lingers in that section. It's like they got here
Ollie
yesterday,
wanders
man.
down, and there is
Oh well,
sorry, I didn't catch that.
sorry. Like Coriolis is extremely new to Einquell, so they're extremely interested in like the this is tunes. This is what tunes do.
There's definitely like a couple maps and things that talk about like the well of inspiration and all that. That information I personally don't know the most on, so I can't elaborate very well. But I will say that there's definitely stuff on topic about that, and just like the topic of erasures, how those are a thing every now and again, and just how tunes kind of just show up and are never stopping to be this wonderful being of creativity that anyone ends up finding. Because that is kind of what Einquell is all about, is creativity.
I will say that when they're passing by the bit on the Well of Inspiration, you guys can roll insight if you want.
Yeah.
Sure.
I do not have Ollie's sheet up, but I will roll just to see what happens. Because it isn't up yet. I got an 11. Ollie doesn't know heck.
And I got a 13. They know slightly more, but not a bunch.
So Drew sort of lingers at that section for a bit, and they seem really curious about it, but that's about it.
I think Coriolis, who is also like kind of like eyeing this with interest, like this is new info. They I think they like stop next to him, and they go, would you be a newcomer to Einquell as well?
Not entirely true, but it's not really a lie.
Oh well, the last thing I want to do is pry here, but I mean, you don't need to be ashamed of not having the basics down yet. I certainly don't. I've been on this shore for a week now, so.
Ollie kind of just shrugs.
I love Ollie so much.
He kind of like he peers over, like he walks ahead, but then he looks back, realizing you two have stopped. So he actually walks back, leans into frame to see the map on the wall there.
The mental image I have of this is amazing.
Gosh.
He writes down, I never did learn about how I came into play here, but it is mighty fascinating to look at.
Who's gonna nod at that? Like, he makes a good point.
He writes down, I've never known what it's like for the erasures. I'm not that old. He's old, but he's not that old.
The erasures?
Erasures are, from my understanding, a very major event for all of Einquell. But they don't happen very often. I believe it only happens 200 years at a time, perhaps. Every 200 years. Any which way, I don't really focus on that very much. I may as well enjoy what I have.
Makes sense. We have to enjoy the life that we have while we have it, you know?
Ollie just nods like, that's right, yeah.
Coriolis, who is dead, is just like, well...
Oops.
Like, they don't say anything, but, like, first of all, you didn't explain what the erasure is, but it sounds not great. Second of all, like, yeah, they look down at, like, their hand, which a couple of the fingers is skeletal, and they're just like, yeah, you take what comes when it comes, I suppose.
Any which way, he waves you two on, like, well, come on, there's still stuff to see.
It's gonna follow, but I will say that although Drew hasn't realized it yet, I, the player, feel so bad now for Coriolis.
Oh,
They're just vibing, man. They don't know shit about shit. They like it.
nobody cares about 'em.
Like if someone explains to them that like this continent has an extinction event every 200 years, but also doesn't explain that like the next extinction event has been accounted for and cancelled, then they're just gonna be like, oh boy.
Yeah, like Ollie doesn't know too much on it. He knows that like some stuff has happened regarding like the erasures, but he's not really focusing on that because he's got other stuff to do. He's got other stuff he wants to enjoy.
Drew does not know peck about the erasures at all.
I don't really care. I'm just gonna enjoy myself. I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna see the world. I'm gonna do it.
I love this
That's
grandpa.
Ollie.
Who has time for the apocalypse? Come on. Man. Anywho, they
Which way though?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, you're good.
No, I was just gonna say that they follow along without further comment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he follows down along the way, and eventually there's like a little like, I guess you could say it's kind of like a box, but there's like glass to cover it because like museums do sometimes. They do that to like keep their stuff protected and everything, preserved, if you will. And there's a couple that have some really old maps, all different places in Einquell.
Mm.
And Ollie kind of points them out. These ones are likely replicas of, from what I've been told, supposedly they may be some of the earlier renditions of Einquell's mapping artwork, I suppose. I'm not quite sure how to word it.
Mm.
But I found a couple while I was out and about one day. Very interesting to look at.
I mean, Coriolis' eyes. Should they roll something to like compare these maps with like modern versions of Einquell? History, maybe.
I think it's pretty obvious. You can tell, like if you have seen like a modern day map, you could definitely tell that there are definitely some visual differences already. It looks more like the ones we see every day now, and I would presume they're definitely a lot more like simplistic. They are much easier to read, and while they are not yellowed, they are typically very brand new looking.
Well, I'm thinking
very
more like
straightforward, but these ones look like your very old vintage kind of setup.
I'm thinking more like in terms of contents, like comparing like the modern day like geography and the townships of Einquell to what they were on these maps.
Since I am not like, because I'm technically, I'm not creator of Toonkind or whatever, or the world that we're in, but I would assume that like the geography hasn't changed very much, if at all, because hey, cartoon consistency, why not?
Fair enough.
Of course, anybody can debunk that and change it however they want. I am just here.
Yeah, you're valid. Sorry. I didn't mean to put undue pressure on you.
It's a really good question. I'm just like, that I wish I could answer, but alas, I am not the person who made this world.
Gosh.
I am the one who made the museum, not the world. That would be pretty dang cool, but that's a lot of work.
Yeah. I think how this resolves is that they regard these maps very closely. Like it's again they know how to read maps, and that's probably apparent to both of them at this point. And they look a little like a little discomfited. Like it's unusual to see towns move around that drastically. Like it's whatever the erasure is, something happened.
I mean, with Erasure, I think more or less it happens more to like the people that inhabit the place, not so much the locations per se.
I think it's like a full
that
resort.
could totally be sung by other people. That is totally possible because I wouldn't know. I do not know all the lore to all of Einquell, unfortunately.
Well,
damn, that would be neat.
I know that there's at least one area that definitely stays about the same even during and after the erasure.
mm,
So at least I know there's some consistency as far as I know.
yeah, it's not like
But
not.
I also don't want to say so. Take my word with a grain of salt. At anybody listening, because I am not the person in charge of this game's world.
Mm,
We'll say again, Drew does not know literally anything about the erasure or reading maps or anything like that. They're just vibing at the moment. They are no thoughts head empty. They don't know what's going on.
Oh. But yeah, he pretty much just like points out like these two old maps. He's just like, yeah, I've seen like a couple different versions of the same thing. It's just kind of neat comparing the way that they would handwrite everything, and now they have things a little bit more streamlined, so it's just easier to read. I still have some old maps at home too, though. I've yet to actually look into them. Some of them take me to some really neat places.
I think.
Where do you find these maps?
He writes down, there are plenty of different locations you often can find these maps around. I don't know why I keep finding a bunch of them. I have like a whole drawer of them now. There's been a lot of different adventures, and some people like to leave their stuff behind, so I hold on to it, and if they find it again, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Arthur, were you gonna say something?
Nah, I actually think Coriolis is a tiny bit still preoccupied with these maps. Like it's but when they pull themselves away, they perk up and they dig around in an inside pocket of the big like flowing, the big captain's coat. And they pull out their own map, which is not of Einquell, but it is like it's more focused on like the spaces between the continents, the ocean and the ports, than it is any like land-based geography. And I think they sit down on the ground because their back's kind of hurting, and they show it to Ollie and they go, and they trace a few like routes through the water and they go, these are from over here near UPA to over here to the other coast of Ruma. That's the very first voyage that my vessel took. Any of this look familiar to you?
He nods, yeah.
Mm.
I've seen a couple maps similar to this too. I think one of my good friends, Abigail, has something like this.
Mm.
Or my good friend Woody, maybe?
I kind of want to know, like I don't imagine Abigail is too famous, but they are a sea captain. I do almost want to have them roll history to know if they recognize that name drop.
Well, I mean, if you want to say that they know, maybe they overheard somebody else talking about them at some point.
I'll roll. 12. They don't. That's above average. Like, they don't know any particulars. Like, it's not like she's some great hero, but like, oh yeah, Abigail. They went to a bar once, and there's like a table that like got broken because of her. And so like maybe they got banned from she got banned from a restaurant that they frequented once. Like, yes, Abigail.
Drew is not going to roll history because Drew has never heard this name before 2 seconds ago. They're not. Well, they're smart, but they're not exactly.
Is that what they would say openly or no?
I mean,
I'm gonna assume not.
sorry, I blinked on that question. Sorry.
You're good.
What
I
was
was just
it?
checking to see, like, is that something that they would say openly?
I think that their eyebrows probably fly up. Like, they definitely react to the name because they are a half giant and nothing about them is subtle at all. But they're just there quietly listening.
Ollie probably does not notice because he is writing down as he goes along.
Fair enough.
So I thought, well, yeah, I've seen the map a little bit. Some stuff similar too. I do recognize those areas. I have been to those areas before. I would like to go back there sometime, actually.
Well, we focus those routes. We follow them pretty regularly, so always feel free to give us a call. And they pause because
he
I
writes
don't.
down on a little piece of paper that he actually tears out of his book,
Mm.
and it actually just has his full name, the number, and also an address because he writes down on the back of the paper, you can phone me, but just keep in mind I won't be able to reply at all. So your best bet might be to write a letter if you really want me to reply. Otherwise, if you just need to tell me something, I can definitely find a way with the phone.
Of course. And my and they stop and they look a little bit sheepish and they go, my ship, if you ever need to get in contact, is the Vengeful Dead. It was funny when we picked the name out. Ask for Captain Coriolis or First Mate Nona.
He writes that down. Yeah, okay. He likely has like a little section in his notebook that just has like the addresses to people that he tends to write a lot of letters to. Just so then he has it on hand in case he actually needs to send something off.
Yeah. And they turn to Drew and they're also like, and that of course goes for you as well. I don't know if you're the Sailing type, but we could use an extra set of hands at the very least.
I am very interested and very intrigued, but Water and I do not tend to get along very well.
You know what? Fair.
Ollie kind of like looks over and is like, oh. Nods like, that's right. That would make sense.
I'm not sure.
Understandable. Have a nice day. He kind of like chuckles and he writes down in his book again. Oh yes, right. The astronomy. I did see something regarding astronomy that I have donated in here as well. We can take a look at that while we can before I go to deal with some project stuff I need to do.
Right, yes. Lead the way.
He does so. He actually begins taking the stairs up to the second floor. There is definitely like a room dedicated just to talk about like the stars and space for Einquell, at least Einquell's take on it, as far as I know. Which is not much information I can give necessarily. I did not come prepared for this FPS, I'm not gonna lie. But there definitely is like a couple like chartings of stars and just like the ideal stuff that you'd normally see in terms of astronomy. It's just a little more tunified.
I will say that that roll that I just did was a con save for Drew because this is the stars and stuff like that. That's right up their alley, and I rolled this to see if upon entering this section of the museum they would immediately bolt and just start like essentially getting the Toon equivalent of the zoomies. But they got a 23, so they don't do that, but...
I feel like they could feel it really well, but they're like, you could tell that they're like unable to still.
Like, this is the stuff they know about. I, the player, don't, but they do.
Ollie just like walks in. He kind of like pauses at the front of the door of the area. He just kind of smiles. He looks around. Like, yeah, same old. Nothing new has changed here. This is still the same as I left it. And he wanders in, and one of the like podiums that they have that have a bunch of different stuff on it. I like to think that there is a item that like it charts the stars, but only to a certain point. So it's like a section of the sky by the looks of it. But it almost looks like I don't want to say it is a pocket watch because it's not a pocket watch, but it definitely has like a similar shape to it. Maybe like a compass. And it just looks like it's like instead of like the actual compass part, it's more like stars, galaxy, but not very big. And he just kind of wanders over to that, and he just writes down, I really can't remember when I found this one, if I'm completely honest. I just found it on my table one day, as far as I know, and I decided to donate it over. I just thought it was a really neat little item for others to look at. From my understanding, they learned that it can sort of tell a little bit of how to navigate through the stars, but that's beyond what I know.
Drew is literally like, you know, like the Steven Universe star eye thing? That's Drew right now.
Oh, so cute.
Coriolis just goes, oh, like an astrolabe, yeah.
Like a what?
They dig through their very deep pockets and they pull out an astrolabe. Because they have to use those. They go, well, my father was a navigator himself, so I grew up using this. Well, not this one, but... And an astrolabe is literally just a thing that you use to tell where you are using the stars. And I think they just hand it to you, Drew. Like, they have so many of these.
Just gonna take it and look it over because they've definitely heard about navigating with the stars. They've done it, but they've never heard of this device to do that. So they're like looking it over with extreme curiosity, like, damn, where was this when I needed one of these?
Well,
Ollie is honestly like leaning over Drew's shoulder, just looking, trying to get a look at it. Like, I have not seen this before either. Huh.
I think Drew will hold it out a little bit so that Ollie can also see, but they're very much just like looking it over with like extreme curiosity and just awe because, again, they didn't know such a thing like this existed until just now.
Aww. I think Coriolis doesn't say much. They just grin at both of them. Like
he's watching over and he...
Sorry, Ike.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Like, I mean, Coriolis is just sort of like... They're kneeling down, like, a little ways, away, just sort of watching these two nerds geek out over, this thing that they use every day, and they just, like, that one can be Drew's. They'll pick up another one on their way back to the ship.
He's gonna look up, like, in shock, like, are you sure?
Oh, of course. I mean, it's that one... well loved, let's say. It should work fine. I can show you how to use it if you want to meet up later tonight. But I mean, they're just another part of ship's equipment.
He's like nodding vigorously, like, motion blur. You cannot see their head. They're nodding so fast.
Ollie, during all this, he's been taking notes in his book. He's just like, this is really fascinating. I'm just gonna take note of this. And he pauses for a moment. He taps the paper again, and then he looks up. He writes down on a different page from that page, and shows it to you, and is like, okay, so what do you call this again? Can you write it down for me? And he actually holds out the pencil.
It's actually spelled Astrolabe. It actually exists. They're old as hell. I'll real quick we'll look up an image for my fellow players.
Ollie's just like taking notes here. He's like, okay, I see. And he goes back to that page and he writes it down.
Yeah, they don't look unlike the thing that Ollie indicated, like sans the stars. Like they are kind of compass shaped. There's different types of them, but I think this one in particular, like the handheld ones, look kind of like this. Oh, come on, you son of a gun. Oh,
It's
come on,
corner
you son of a
below.
gun. There we go.
Or don't be rude.
There we are.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow. So for the folks at home, it does look like a bit of a compass, but instead of your usual north, south, east, west, there is definitely different patterns going on, as far as I can see, that would help graph things out, I would presume.
Yeah,
and there are 2 points that you can use with your fingers.
Yeah, so
in place of the points on the compass would be.
Yeah. You aim that dial at Polaris, the North Star in our universe. I guess whatever star occupies the axis in the Einquell universe for these folks. And those there's markings around the edge of the dial that indicate latitude, longitude. And you use it in tandem with a clock, because of course stars move over the course of the night relative to, a ship.
I feel like I need to be taking notes, because Ollie is taking notes, but I certainly have not been.
Yeah, I feel like now that Drew has one of these, I should take notes on it. But that can be a problem for me who exists in the future.
I'll find you guys some resources, because I've only used these myself a couple times and never in like a survival situation. So like, but yeah, you don't have to take my word for it. I'm sure there's like some NASA articles. But anyway.
It's so neat though. I think Ollie is just as interested. He's like, wow, okay. And he chuckles for a bit there. The silent chuckle, yeah. And he looks around a little bit around the room again. And then goes, oh, right. He writes down, I probably should get back to doing what I was doing, right? I might need a bit of help, perhaps.
I can help.
Yeah, what with?
Nothing too major. Mainly just putting up some posters for a little something that I've been working on. I've been told that there's a couple areas I could stick them up.
We can help with that.
Yeah, I have had much practice putting up posters as of late. And I think they both, like, Drew and Coriolis maybe share a glance and, like, both, like, sort of stand at attention, like, yes, we are helpful lads.
It's like when your teacher asks you to bring some stuff into the classroom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Strong kids. And
100%.
Yes.
like
100%.
mm-hmm.
Ollie's like, okay, cool. And he waits you guys to wander back up to the front where he left that box.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask.
Out a little bit, so this space isn't going to take too long because I know that we are probably have gone over an hour.
Oh, absolutely.
Ollie goes back, he opens up the box, and there are indeed posters inside. The posters mainly have this visual of a globe, and in front of the globe, it spells out EGAD. And then there's some information beneath it.
Mm.
I think Drew's going to pull a stack out of the box that they can take and hang up, but they're also going to take one of them off the top and just. Can I take one of these, like, for myself?
Ollie nods, yes.
Okay. And Drew's gonna tuck that behind their back into their hammer space.
Yeah, Coriolis also tucks one into the inside pocket of their coat. And also they just pick up the whole box like one-handed and like hand a stack to Ollie. Just like, yeah, they're strong. Whatever else
Strong,
they are
gosh.
strong.
Ollie just like, he sees this happen and you can see that there is absolute excitement in his eyes. He is all in for this now.
Mm.
He just kind of clasps his hands together and then he writes down, well, what are we waiting for? And I think that's probably close to where we end off the FPS for now.
Sounds
Yeah, that
good.
works.
Yeah. Man.
This was so good.
Yeah. Gosh.
I just
Thank
do
you
little.
for playing, and to anyone listening, thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you
thank
so
you
much,
guys
Ollie.
for playing. This was so good.
Oh,
Yeah, thank you too. Thank you too, JayJay. Gosh.
I think now it is time. Have a good time zone to all listeners, both current and in the future. And bye-bye.
Good boy.
Bye-bye.